Turn 4 of Sword of Rome after the first impulse. What we got? Well, things changed a little bit. The Etruscan Samnites chose to make the Carthaginians the first player instead of their allies, the Greeks. The Carthaginians moved in, laid siege to Syracuse. The Romans came out and drove the Samnites out of Rome. Now you'll see Rome is neutral. That was done because of the Greek privateers card. All that's left is the currently besieged city of Sutrium, which after the battle that Camillus won to clear Rome, ended up joining the Roman Confederation again, but now it's under siege, and it's the only one they hold. And then the Etruscans, what did they do? Or not the Etruscans, the Samnites. Damned if I know. They moved forward to attack Rome, won, but took enough losses that they can no longer besiege it. They destroyed the Roman army, which is why it's neutral. Gotcha. After the second round here, in the fourth turn, Carthage finished off Syracuse, taking it. The Romans discarded a card. They have nothing they can do. The Gauls oopsed. They charged down to attack the Etruscans with a hope to destroy them. The force was a little small. They lost the battle. And actually, yeah, they lost three strength points. So they lost Pisae, but the Etruscans also managed to get Tarquini back, and now they're basically back in business, which they really weren't before. Going to the Samnite and the Etruscans. The Samnites moved down to Praeneste, hoping to grab it. And then the Greeks started marching their decent leader down. Hopes to engage the Carthaginians. They're taking a long way there, though. After 3 rounds, Carthage made a landing in Rhegium. The Greek garrison fled into the city. Seeing the Greeks coming down under Agathocles, they paused their movement this time in order to collect some Gallic mercenaries. The Gauls lost, they have a lot of troops, or had a lot of troops on the board. They just lost 2 of those, bring them down to 3 up here to join the Greek wars. And what else? The Samnites gained Praeneste, and the Etruscans increased their loyalty over in Pisae. The Gauls failed in their siege, lost a strong point. Here at the end, I missed my statement on the 4th round, and it's kind of funny because something kind of exciting actually happened. There was a siege going on down in Rhegium by the Carthaginians. On the 5th round, the Greeks came in and knocked the Carthaginians out, and they retreated by sea. That cost a card to get all the way to here. Now, what happened after that? It's kind of weird. Well, let me go over. In the north, we had the Transalpine Gauls, which had converted a couple of spaces. The Gauls came in and kicked their butt, got their spaces back. And then the Etruscan player played a 1-use card, Mamertinus, which was essentially a revolt in Messena that allowed the Greeks to come across, and they actually fought a battle and took Syracuse. And then, from there, that's about where we are, and that's the end of the phase. So the Greeks are resurgent again. They haven't regained everything, not by any means. And they've got a problem because they've got to get rid of their leader. He's going to cost them 2 loyalty. That would mean losing a city, and you really don't want to do that because they only have extra point in Capua, I believe, out of all their cities. So that's kind of troubling to them. But we'll finish that up and then move on to the next turn. Okay, that was the end of 4 turns into the 5th turn. Not much has changed, except I've calculated up the victory points that everybody's got. The Gauls are in the lead at 9. They were there before. They haven't lost anything due to losing any of their territories yet. The people they had here converting had died from attrition. The Greeks made their way up to 8, which is pretty potent. At this point, the Etruscans were thinking, and the Samnites in particular, were thinking, maybe that alliance isn't such a great idea, but right now they still want it. They don't want to get into a war with the Greeks. It's not that close to victory, and they want a free hand against the Gauls, which is going to be really hard. I mean, this isn't Rome facing the Gauls. This is the Etruscans and Samnites. Rome's still gone, and at 0 victory points. The Etruscan Samnites are down. They're making their way up at 2 from the Roman territories they've taken, but they really do have to get a lot of points to be back in the running. Carthage is still at 6. They've pretty much found their way to a break-even point, but now they're facing the entirety of the Greek army. But there are no Greek leaders. The Greeks had to lose their leader. So it may be that the Greeks aren't going to be able to maintain the offensive that they started here. And Hamilcar is producing decent amounts of troops, so we'll see. So just to take a brief moment, this is a card the Greeks have in their hand. Remove 1 support from a port in Italy. Now, as far as I know, I've looked, not all that hard, but Italy is not defined in the game. What is Italy? I would say it's obviously not Africa, but the question comes, is Sicily part of Italy? Is Sardinia? I don't know. My feeling is that the Carthaginian navy might be able to intercept things in those locations. I just don't have an answer. It's the kind of thing that I expect there's probably some errata somewhere or another kicking around. But it's a pity. First round, Gaul's going first because the Romans get to pick now. They feel like they're out of the game completely. They're just throwing cards, and if this were a real game, I think I'd have no problem if the player wanted to leave. Okay, so what's up with the Gauls? They swung through Rome and besieged Archini. The Etruscans came back and bribed a couple of mercenaries. This doesn't require the mines. It's a mercenary switch sides card. They got 2 Gauls in exchange and added them to the Etruscan army, which kind of evens things out a little bit more. Right now the Gauls have a lot of troops facing the Etruscans and perhaps the Samnites. The Greeks pulled a new leader, and this is kind of the bonus. Each turn they're going to have the ability, more or less, to have a leader in their draw pile, one would assume. So they got a decent one here. They could actually maybe pay for him for a turn or 2. Carthaginians overran the other leader in Carthage, or the other Greek leader who was here. He had a couple of troops. He didn't cause any casualties. The space was lost, and that's it. After 2, we had some playing with troops. Remember before the Etruscans grabbed some Gallic mercenaries? Well, on the Gauls' turn, they recalled some Greek mercenaries, which actually they took from Rhegium and from Tarentum. There was a cost to this. Once the Samnites marched up to Narnia, put it under siege. Then the Greeks moved forward. I think I forgot to do anything with the Carthaginians again, and were intercepted by the Carthaginians here. The Carthaginians played a very cool card of theirs, emergency levies, which allows them to buy additional troops. Then they did an interception after that. They did Balearic Slingers, which was the next card up there, to wipe the leader off that stack, so Temelian was gone. And then they faced a much, much weaker force. The Greeks threw hoplites in, which actually increased their losses, but there was a chance that they could win the fight. And now they're back in Syracuse, but losing the battle lost them one of those territories that they had garrisoned, but no longer have as such. And then we went to the Roman discard, but I've got to do a Carthaginian turn. I didn't do that. All right. It's the end of 3. And what's happened? Well, the Gauls succeeded in their siege of Tarquini. Actually, they have a siege marker still there because they could end up with control of it. They looted it and picked up a victory point off that, essentially. Going to the Etruscans, they charged up and attacked here at, what is this, Faesulae? And were defeated with, of all things, Roman help. The Romans played a card to penalize the Etruscans. Why? They want this over with. I think that's valid reasoning. That would happen in a normal game if they were sitting here. They also tried to cut a deal with the Etruscans. Hey, be my ally, liberate one of my cities, bring me back in the game, and I'll help you defeat the Gauls. And the Etruscans said no. So I think it's a reasonable reaction. Then we go down, and the Greeks ended up bringing the Transalpines in and doing a little bit of damage there, taking a town, which is going to be a problem. And then Carthage attempted to siege Syracuse, and that failed, and the Romans discarded a card. Around again. What is this? 4th going into 5th. And what do we got? The Gauls charged over to try to deal with their problem, and then I believe it was Carthage spent to move the Transalpine Gauls around, grabbed Genoa, not actually grabbed it, raided it, and got rid of the last plunder marker that way. So right now the Gauls are sitting with 2 of their victory point cities missing. That's going to cost them 2 victory points unless they can fix that. That's far more important than anything else they can do. When we get around to the this was part of that. Oh yeah, the Etruscans, they played their reshuffle card, domestication, got rid of one Gaul up here. And the Greeks, God knows what they did. They upped their loyalty, and as I said, the Carthaginians chose not to keep pursuing this siege, but instead to play the neutral power activation. Okay, and here we are after 5, going to turn 6. Now this would be, from what I understand, the end of the short game after turn 6. I guess you can set the time limit pretty much where we like, though, so there's no real reason particularly say 6 instead of 7. I think you want the game to hang. I think beyond. I think you want to make it beyond 4 or 5 turns. So this may be the feel of. This is the shortest that you can make the game and still give Rome a really good chance of winning the game, of building up high enough that you can get a good enough chance to get through the Greeks, through the different issues that affect the different players. In terms of their initial balance is not what necessarily determines who should win the game. But I think you could actually have it even shorter than 6. Anyway, onward for what happened. Not a lot's changed. The siege didn't succeed here. This one's actually undermanned. The Gauls succeeded, but that doesn't do them any good. They did clear out the territories and wipe out the Transalpines. And right now they're doing pretty well victory point wise at 10. They need 2 more to win, but everybody's kind of aware, gotta stop the Gauls. So the Carthage alliance dropped. It doesn't serve much purpose. It was a one-time to get a card, to get a campaign usable by the Samnites. And speaking of which, it's the Samnite Etruscan player. They're the only ones who gained anything. They gained 1 point this turn. That's really about it. We're seeing pretty much chaos where Rome used to be.